Welcome back to Just Chattin', and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evening just for our own amusement. So for all you Audie fans, my bad boy is in the bedroom. Last time I saw him, he was sound asleep, but he has been making appearances in the videos lately, so he may well show up. He had a very good weekend. It was rather cold here last week. I don't want to make it sound like it was gruesomely cold, but it was a good 10 to 20 degrees colder than usual for this time of year. So Audie wasn't happy. There was snow on the ground. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like to get snow on his paws. No idea why. But it was a little unsettling for him. So he spent a lot of time indoors, but now he's had a bath. He has a squeaky clean litter box. What else could a little cat want? But we may end up seeing him. Okay, we are going to take a quick look at the intro, and we're going to get right into things. So let's start off with a quick story. We're going to be able to get through this in a couple of minutes. Nutmeg has recently released a photograph of herself, her sock puppet, and the putative children, in which she is wearing a completely see-through dress. Now, this was not a casual snapshot. This is not, somebody happened to be nearby and caught them unawares. No, this was a posed photograph, obviously carefully posed. Did she know that she was wearing a see-through dress? Yes, of course. When was the last time we saw that? Oh, yes, that's right. The 1980s. Lady Diana Spencer. When Charles had announced his engagement to Lady Di, the press just lit on her. And she was tricked into stepping into the light so the press could get a photograph of her. And because the sun was to her back, it turned what was not a translucent skirt. This was a perfectly respectable, lightweight cotton skirt. Turned that into like a girly show. You could see everything under that skirt. Now, it's important to remember that this was probably one of the worst moments in Diana's life when those photos hit the papers. She was humiliated. She had no idea when they were coaxing her into the light what they were seeing. How could she? So, by the way, there are also many people out there, and I count myself among them, who believe that because Diana felt her thighs looked a little too chunky in those photographs, that's what triggered her bulimia. And like I say, I'm one of them. I do believe that that very humiliating moment on the front page of every British tabloid is what basically gave her an eating disorder. So, congratulations, British press. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Okay, it was a long time ago. Things have changed. The fact is, now Nutmeg is out cosplaying what had to be one of the worst moments in Diana's life. And one really has to wonder. Harry participated in this. This was allegedly his beloved mother. He adored Diana. Yet he has no problem allowing one of the worst moments of her life to be cosplayed by his wife. There's something really, really wrong with those two. Oh, and by the way, I mean that from a clinical perspective. Something really, really wrong. There was Obviously, a photographer there. The photo was clearly very carefully staged, very carefully lit. Did Nutmeg know what she was doing? Oh, yeah, she's the one who released the photo. So why would she do this? Well, halfway around the world, her father is in a hospital, missing half his leg. And is she going to see him? Oh, no. It's too dangerous for her to travel over there. Yeah, right. She could travel to Colombia. She could travel to Nigeria. But can she travel to see her own father? No. So she needs something to deflect attention away from the fact that she and the sock puppet, allegedly, I have not seen this confirmed yet, allegedly are planning a little vacation, which I very much doubt will be including a visit to a hospital in the Philippines. They can do that, but they can't see her father. Okay. But she needs to deflect attention away from this. So what does she do when she wants attention? She cosplays Diana. This is like her standard fallback position. In this case, I think it was reprehensible. You don't have to be a fan of Diana's, and I know a lot of people were not, but you just have to be a human being to understand that Diana, a teenage girl with no experience with the press, was manipulated into giving the media a very juicy photograph that later was a great source of humiliation for her. And as I say, there are many of us who believe that those pictures on the front page of every British tabloid is what prompted her descent into eating disorders. So yeah, bad taste doesn't even come close to describing this. But that's Nutmeg for you. When has she ever been known for her good taste and sensitivity? So let's get into what I really wanted to talk about, what our main story is. And that is that Harry the Sock Puppet was recently at a polo match where he was introduced repeatedly, not just once, 4 or 5 times. I mean, this was constant, as Harry Wales. Yeah, his spokesperson has come out and said it was a mistake. Well, you make a mistake once. When you're saying it 4 or 5 times and nobody's correcting the narrative, it's not really a mistake anymore, is it? 1, I'll give you. 2, maybe. But 4 or 5, no. Clearly, someone told the announcer at that polo match that he was known as Harry Wales. Wonder who that might have been. So, is this the first time we have seen Harry in the throes of an identity crisis? No, it is not. Let's not forget, last summer, and this was in June, I believe. I've got the articles in the video notes. Last summer, Harry went to his Uncle Charles, and that is Diana's brother. And for the sake of clarity, Uncle Charles, Father Charles, I am going to refer to Charles Spencer as Carlos. That was the nickname Diana had for him, so that she didn't have that confusion. So Harry goes to Uncle Carlos and says, I would like to be Harry Spencer. Uncle Carlos, who is not as insane or as stupid as Harry, reasonably said, I don't think that's a very good idea. Just why would you want to do that? So apparently it kind of got nipped in the bud, because without the support of Uncle Carlos, who is now head of that branch of the Spencer family, it probably wouldn't have been an astute thing to do. So that was our first identity crisis. A couple of months later, and this was in August of this year, Nutmeg makes quite a point of telling the world her name is Sussex now. That is her family name. Let me share the clip with you.
It's so funny, too, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. This is our family name, our little family name.
Yeah, so here we have it in her own words. I'm Sussex now. I had my name changed. By the way, I don't know if she did in fact actually have her name changed, or if she just assumed that through marriage it automatically changed. And I don't much care one way or the other. The bottom line is I wouldn't believe her either way, so until somebody comes up with some proof one way or another, I'm not willing to take Nutmeg's word. Well, in the immortal words of Piers Morgan, I wouldn't believe her if she read me the weather report, so there you have it. So, we have Harry in June trying to be a Spencer. We have Nutmeg in August claiming to be a Sussex. And here we are in December, and Harry is claiming to be a Wales. You gotta wonder what is going on with these people. This is a major identity crisis. And frankly, if I didn't think Harry needed to be in therapy before this would certainly push that question right over the cliff for me. Oh yeah, therapy is definitely in order here. So let's take a look at this. And I'm going to pick it apart because is he Harry Wales? Well, the quick answer is no. No, he is not. This issue was resolved in the 1950s when Queen Elizabeth married Philip, and she was a Windsor at that point because her family had changed the name from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to Windsor back in the First World War. Philip was a Mountbatten because his branch of the family did much the same thing with their name, Battenberg, when they didn't want the German associations for obvious reasons. So, Elizabeth Windsor marries Philip Mountbatten, and they combined the two names. And basically, Philip shamed the public into this when he rather vociferously announced that he was the only man in the country who was not able to give his surname to his own children. Yeah, it was kind of a problem. Now, Elizabeth never used a last name of any sort. She was the queen. She didn't have to. Would she, if she became queen today? I think probably. I think we have to remember that she was born more than 100 years ago. Things were very different in her girlhood and young womanhood. It's not the same today. Most royal families have family names. I think the most well-known example of this is the House of Grimaldi in Monaco, and mostly because they have passed from father to son in an unbroken line for many, many generations. So they're all Grimaldi. That has not happened with the royal house in the UK. And it's not just a question of not passing directly from father to son, but having to trace the family line backwards and then forwards again, because it's been on the verge of dying out a couple of times. So what we have is a clear sense of what the family name is. Charles's surname is Mountbatten Windsor. We know this. We've known this for, heavens, more than 70 years. It's fact. And we have seen this very recently with Andrew being demoted and losing his titles, and he is now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But this only applies to the 4 children of Philip and Elizabeth, and of course, their children. If you go back, and again, trace the family descent backwards to George V, and then forward again to his descendants, they are using the family name Windsor. People who are not titled within that family, but have the last name. That's the one they have. So, what is the sock puppet's name? It is Henry Mountbatten Windsor. That's his name. The fact that he has taken things like Wales, and apparently that was the name he served in the military under, that's meaningless. And the reason I say it's meaningless is because his grandfather and his great-uncle both served in World War II, and they did not serve under their own family names. They served under pseudonyms, which is often done when members of the royal family serve in the military in times of war in order to disguise their identity in case they happen to get captured. I get that. It's a reasonable precaution. Does that mean that because he served in the military under the name Wales, that he is entitled to use this? No. And the reason for that is that the name Wales is associated with the Prince of Wales. Charles, his father, was the Prince of Wales during the time in which Harry served in the military, so Harry could arguably use that. Okay. However, once Charles ascended to the throne, the Prince of Wales title devolved to William. Now it's William and his heirs who have that title. So we have William, Prince of Wales, and then we have his children, Prince George of Wales, Princess Charlotte of Wales, Prince Louis of Wales. That branch of the family has custody of the title for the time being. And again, these things are transitory. It's not a surname. It's simply a designation. So, what is Sussex then? Well, I think the best example for why Sussex is not Harry's last name, and we're going to take one that is familiar to us, and let's take a look at Lady Colin Campbell, a woman who is very familiar to those of us in the Megxit community. Lady C used to be Georgiana Ziadi, and that had been her maiden name. She marries a guy named Colin Campbell. He was Lord Colin Campbell. That was his name. Colin Campbell's brother Ian, remember Colin Campbell? Well, this was Ian Campbell, was the Duke of Argyll. Now, were people calling him Ian Argyll? Probably not, but I'm not saying they did or didn't. I'm not a member of his social circle, so I don't know. But is it common for someone to do this? No. Generally speaking, a duke is known as, in the case of Ian Campbell, 12th Duke of Argyll. Okay? So, he passes away, by the way, the 13th Duke of Argyll is now generally known to one and all as Torquil Campbell, 13th Duke of Argyll, and I don't think anybody is calling him Torquil Argyll. This seems to be a convention that is applied to members of the royal family for the sake of convenience, and it's rather archaic, frankly. Is this something that I would say is relevant in the 21st century? No. Now, Andrew, the former Prince Andrew, who is now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, went by the name York. But again, we're casting back a ways. Keep in mind, this is a guy who is in his 60s. We're not talking about young people, and we're not talking about naming conventions that we have today. So, within the immediate circle of the royal family, yes, perhaps that is done. Is the sock puppet in the immediate circle of the royal family? I would say pretty much no. So, is he Harry Sussex? You can make a much better argument for that than you can make for Harry Wales, because at this point, the Wales title has shifted over. It's William and his line of descent. And remember, these people, British aristocrats, line of descent is everything to them. Harry is the cadet branch of the family. Is he entitled to use the title Wales? No, that stopped the minute his father was no longer using the title, which is when Charles became king. So, no, not his title. Sussex, well, not his name. What are the other choices? Well, he is Harry Mountbatten Windsor. We just can't get around that. And what I think we're seeing is a desire Harry has to disassociate himself from his paternal line. And I don't understand that. I have no sense from anything I have ever read or heard that Philip did anything to alienate Harry. So is he trying to disassociate himself from, his grandfather? I don't know. I really don't know. Is he trying to disassociate himself from his father? Maybe. It wouldn't be smart of him, but then again, he's not a very smart guy. Is he trying to irritate his brother? I'd say it's a more likely possibility. Not smart, but again, Harry's not a very smart guy. But what I am finding interesting is that when we look at this little nuclear family, Nutmeg, the sock puppet, and their putative children, we are seeing Spencer, that's what they tried in June. Sussex, that's what Nutmeg threw out in August. Wales, that is what Harry is throwing out now, when in reality, the actual name is Mountbatten Windsor. I have no idea what's going on here. I'm not sure they do either, but it seems very clear to me they are attempting to assert that because they are royal, which I would say is very subjective at best at this point, they have the right to pick and choose their name. So a word about that before we go. This is the United States. You can, as long as you are not doing it to commit a fraud, take any name you want to. You can call yourself Prince of the Moon and sign your name that way. And as long as you're not doing it for criminal intent, in other words, as long as you're not calling yourself a Rockefeller in order to show up at a New York bank and get a loan, you're golden. Do you have to change your name in a court of law? No, you can use any name you want to use. Do I believe Nutmeg's name was changed to Sussex in a court of law? No. Again, I'd have to see the paperwork to believe that. I think this is just another one of her little fantasies. So, what would their options be? Yes, they can call themselves Sussex if they want to. They wouldn't be committing a fraud or any kind of deception. They can't call themselves Wales because that is committing a fraud. That is claiming a title that they don't have. And I would say, yeah, that's something that's getting very dangerously close to that committing a fraud line. You're claiming something, a title that isn't yours. What are we left with? Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I am finding myself hopelessly confused. I don't know what they are up to. I don't know why Harry is doing this. Yes, they can write it off and say it was a mistake, but no. One, maybe two, a mistake. But when somebody says this over and over again and no one is correcting them, I'm sorry, it's not a mistake. Somebody is throwing this out, maybe as a test balloon, but this is being done on purpose. So, some kind of game is afoot. I'm just not sure what it is yet, and because it's centered around the idiot sock puppet, I think it should be very interesting to watch how it unfolds. All right, that is what I have for you today. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. Thank you for being with us, and I hope to see you all next time. Meanwhile, have a terrific day.